Good morning and welcome. It is Saturday. It is October 2nd. It's about 10 o'clock in the morning, and we're back in the beautiful desert paradise that is Lut Gholeim. And we're about to talk to a guy about a guy. That's another guy. We have been quested to find the tomb, that's not the guy, of Tal Rasha, the dead dude who is supposedly, is this a dude?
Ask.
He has nothing to tell me. Anyways, we're going into the desert, and we're going to try and find some places. So if we look at the waypoint, we are looking for the dry hills as our next stop. We go to our quest log. It tells us, search the halls of the dead under the dry hills for the Herodric Cube. Search the maggot lair under the far oasis for the shaft. Shaft. Search the Clawfire Temple for the headpiece. So we're going to make the Herodric... We need to find the Herodric staff, put it in the Herodric cube to make a thing that will lead us to the temple where they buried the dude. And then we're going to go, I guess, free the dude to fight more dead things. But first, we have to wander through the desert. And right outside the desert is Dragon Grin, the Howler. Okay, so now we're getting to the parts I don't remember anything about. Oh, there's a dead guy here. Hello, sir. Sir. So I think we're just gonna, I don't know, walk in a straight line? Oh, look, there's a bunch of gold here. Hello? I'm not stealing this, I'm borrowing it. I will return it when I find the person it belongs to. Sand Leaper. Dung Soldier, that's a fun name. So I don't know if you've been paying attention to the world of tabletop role-playing game controversy, but apparently, thanks to the meanderings of a insane troll, whose names I will not mention, but his initials are JSG, there has been some contention over which role-playing game Gary Gygax is, which game is the most true to Gygax's legacy? Like, what is the one that is the most Gygax of all the Gygax games? And who is getting it right in regards to this is what Gary Gygax wanted? Gary Gygax died in 2008, as far as anybody knows. So unless that's a lie, or he's risen from the dead, you have no way of knowing what Gary wanted. Because he's dead. You can guess, based upon notes and interviews, what he might have wanted. But you have no way for sure. Gary's dead. So first, 5th edition. Gary Gygax had absolutely nothing to do with 5th edition. He had nothing to do with any of the editions of Dungeons & Dragons written by Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast purchased TSR and all the rights to D&D around the year 2000, or shortly before then, when 3rd edition came out. Gygax had nothing to do with 3rd edition, 4th edition, and he has absolutely nothing to do with 5th edition. In fact, he was dead before 5th edition was even written. So, anybody who says 5th edition is what Gary wanted, nope, because Gary's dead. So, we have no idea what, if 5th edition is or is not what Gary wanted, but I can assure you, Gary Gygax had nothing to do with 5th edition, or 4th edition, or 3rd edition, because he's dead. The closest he got was writing a preface for the revision of Return to the Tomb of Horrors. He wrote the preface for that. That's the only thing he ever did for Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast D&D is not Gary Gygax's D&D. Gary Gygax had absolutely nothing to do with 5th edition, so anybody who's saying that 5th edition is the game that is most loyal to Gary's dream, it's what Gary wanted, it's what Gary wrote, that is a lie. Gary had nothing to do with 5th edition or anything Wizards of the Coast created for D&D. So, yeah. Take that and smoke it.
I'll put that to good use.
Okay, so then it leaves which game is the game that is most true to what Gary Gygax would have done had he not left TSR. So if you're not familiar with the convoluted history, Gary Gygax and TSR parted ways at some point in time. I'm not going to get into the how or the why because there's multiple stories about what happened, why it happened. Ooh, lightning damage. Who's responsible? And that's just conjecture. And yeah. So, but we know that Gary Gygax ended his relationship with TSR sometime after Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So there's one game company out there called Adventures Dark and Deep. And they have an adventure game thing out, which they say is true to Gary's dream. They've taken all the things he wrote for first edition. They're taking all the things he's hinted at. Somebody's throwing potions at me. In Dragon magazines and notes, and written the game that they think Gary would have wanted Advanced Dungeons and Dragons to become had he not left. Except I cannot find anything that says whether Gary actually had anything to do with Adventures Dark or Deep or not. So, if anybody knows whether Gary Gygax actually had something to do with Adventures Dark and Deep, let me know, because I couldn't find anything in the wiki or the list of his publications that he had anything to do with the writing of that product. It's more like it's just somebody has taken notes and said, well, I think this is what Gary wanted. But, of course, unless you spoke to him, there's no way for sure knowing exactly what Gary wanted. Then there's a game called Castle and Crusades, and there's a bunch of people who say that is the game closest to Gary's vision. That's what Gary wanted. And Gary did do some writing, or at least had something to do with Castles and Crusades at the beginning. Again, it's very vague as to what he did and did not have to do, but we do know he wrote something for it, had something to do with it. Oh, there it is. Okay. Bam! Dry Hills, we found it. That was quick. Normally we don't find them that quick. Nope, you can't use that. What are we looking for? Something under the Dry Hills, right? Halls of the Dead, under the Dry Hills. But he definitely had his fingers in the Castle and Crusades pie. So we could say that, and Castle Crusades was part of the OGL, so that's around the year 2000, or maybe, whenever the OGL became open to non-D&D-ish stuff. It does say in the description of Castle and Crusades that it uses 3rd edition, so 2000-ish. So Gary definitely does have had some influence on that game. So is that game closest to what Gary wanted, even though, it's now going on 21 years. So again, there's nothing to say, very little that says what Gary had to do with Castle Crusades past the starting point, but there is a lot of people who claim that's the game closest to Gary's dream, because that's the very last game he had his hands in, except, of course, there is a game called Legendary Adventures, a very little known, very not sold much, never made a lot of money, never got a lot of press, called Legendary Adventures, that Gary Gygax was working on pretty much up to his death. And Gary has said that he thinks Legendary Adventure is the greatest thing he ever wrote, and that's the game that's closest to his dream of what he wanted D&D to be. So really, to resolve the argument, if we want to find the game that is closest to Gary Gygax's legacy, closest to what Gary Gygax had intended, the most recentest game that fulfills Gygax's dream of what he thought a role-playing game should be, then it's Legendary Adventures is the one that we should be playing. not 5th edition, not Castles of Crusade, not Adventures Dark and Deep, Legendary's Adventure, because that's the one Gary said he felt was the best thing he ever wrote. And that's the one that he was most recently working on before he passed away. Now, in regards to Dungeons & Dragons and Gary Gygax's legacy, Wizards of the Coast owns the name Dungeons & Dragons. They can put the name Dungeons & Dragons on anything and call it Dungeons & Dragons, whether we agree that it was a Dungeons & Dragons game or not. Like 99% of us all agree that 4th edition D&D was not D&D. I'd say 60% of us agree that 5th edition is not D&D. And there's even some people who say 3rd edition wasn't D&D because it had nothing to do with what Gary wrote. But really, Wizards of the Coast can call anything they want D&D because they own the name. They can take 2 pieces of bread, put a slice of turkey in it, and, you know, some mayonnaise, and call that D&D if they wanted. Because they can call whatever they want D&D. I'm going to go through this door, even though I don't have to. And we'll never know that none of those are close to what Gary Gygax wanted, because he had nothing to do with them. So the guy out there saying, oh, 5th edition is what Gary wanted it to be, he always foresaw it becoming 5th edition. It's closest to his creative dream of what he intended. That is completely wrong. Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition has absolutely nothing to do with Gary Gygax. We cannot call it a Gary Gygax production. Wizards of the Coast can do whatever they want with D&D. We don't have to like it, but they own the rules. And at the end of the day, none of this matters. Who cares what Gary Gygax wanted or didn't want it? Well, he's dead. So nothing you're doing is supporting Gary Gygax. Nothing you're doing is putting money in Gary Gygax's pocket. Nothing we do or play or say has any way, shape, or form influence on the legacy of Gary Gygax, because Gary Gygax is dead. So really, if you wanted to support Gary Gygax, you would be doing something to support his kids, Luke, Ernie, and the many others, because apparently he has 6 kids. So you should be buying Ernie's stuff and Luke's stuff, and supporting them, because they are the heirs to the Gygax. This was a bloody hell. This was the Gygax name. I had no reason to come up here, apparently. So all this talk about Gary's legacy, Gary Gygax, what Gary wanted, support Gary Gygax. He's dead. You want to support him? Support his kids. You want to play the game that's closest to what Gary had intended or was closest to his legacy? Well, that would be Legendary Adventures, because he that was the last thing he was writing in. If you want to play the game that most people agree is closest to what Gary wanted, well, that would probably be Castle and Crusades, because at least he actually had something to do with Castle and Crusades. And I know there's some people who say Adventures Dark and Deep is more closer to what Gary had in mind, except from what I can find, and this could be wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong, Gary had nothing to do with Adventures Dark and Deep. It's more just like, is this what I'm looking for? Ah, here we go. This is what this guy thinks Gary wanted based upon the notes and interviews and whatever. But we'll never know for sure. And it doesn't matter, because he's dead. So really, who cares? Play the game you want to play. Play the game you want to play it. Have fun playing it. As long as we're playing any tabletop role-playing game, you are fulfilling Gary's legacy. You're living up to Gary's expectations. You are, you know, doing what Gary wanted you to do, because of what Gary wanted us to do, since he, you know, coined the term, or is the father of role-playing, and I'm not going to get into the argument of whether he is, or if Dave is, or if Kuntz is, or if the Taslanta guy is actually, you know, because really if we want to get into it, the guy from the 1870s is the father of role-playing, because he's the one who wrote those rules for the military game that said, you know what, do whatever you want. and came up with the first idea of Dungeon Master or Game Master. So, but that's a different topic. As long as you're playing, as long as you're having fun, as long as you enjoy the game you're playing, you are living up to Gary's legacy, you're supporting the legacy, and you're doing what Gary wanted us to do, which is play. He didn't want us to argue, he didn't want us to troll each other, he didn't want some idiot out there worshipping him like he's a god. He wanted to play, and he wanted to make money off of playing, which is another issue that needs to be addressed by somebody smarter than me. So really, at the end of the day, nothing I have to say matters about Gary Gygax. I never met the guy. I don't know what he had in mind. I play role-playing my way, you play role-playing your way, that guy plays role-playing his way, this corrupted champion Halla one plays role-playing his way, I'm playing Diablo, which, you know, is role-playing. So by playing Diablo, I'm living up. So, you know what? No one cares. This argument over Gary's legacy needs to end. If you're playing a game, you're playing Gary's legacy. But 5th edition is not what Gary wanted. Remark. Gary had nothing to do with 5th edition. And that's all I have to say on the topic. If you agree with me, let me know. If you disagree with me, let me know. If you don't think I should ever talk about Gary Gygax ever again, let me know. Meanwhile, we gotta go resurrect our dude.
Need some help?
There's my girlfriend.
Good day.
I'll put that to good use.
And now back to our regularly scheduled Diablo. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Aha! Ooh, Grand Charm. Which I think is better than a regular charm. Stop it. Stop it. I'm working here. Stop bringing them back to... for life. Guys, come on, give me a break. Ooh, nice. Guess we go down here. Nope. Well, that was quick. Plague Pox the Unclean. Wonderful name to give your child. Stop it. I mean, I know they're not going to listen to me, so me yelling at them to stop it is pointless, but... I can dream, right? Okay, I'm gonna guess this is the wrong way. Alright, I don't remember Act 2 at all. I mean, I had vague memories of Act 1. Oh, look, there it is. I mean, you can tell because it's got a shiny thing on the map. Blood Witch the Wild. We gotta get rid of this guy so he stops resurrecting them. we gotta get rid of this guy. And I think my dude took care of Blood Witch the Wild. Anybody else? Hello? Hello? Roderick Cube! Oh, yes! That's it? Anybody? I guess a composite bow? You ever notice that the magic items you get are completely inappropriate for the character you're playing? I haven't gotten any paladin-specific magic items, but, oh yeah, alright, Deckard.
You have quite a treasure there in that Horodric cube. According to Horodric lore, the cube can restore a Horodric staff. To do it, use the cube as you would a scroll. When the cube opens, place both pieces of the staff into it and use the cube's transmute power. You'll be pleased to know that the cube has other alchemical uses as well. 6 gems plus 1 sword transmute into a socketed longsword. You may also transmute 2 quivers of crossbow bolts into 1 quiver of arrows, while 2 quivers of arrows yield 1 quiver of bolts. I must leave it to you to discover other formulae.
Thank you! Which means now we have to look up the Roderick Cube recipes. Oh yes, there's my box. Check it out. Don't forget, do you carry it with you, or you leave it behind, right? I'm just gonna... Alright, let's see if we can put these gems together. I'm sure that's gotta be a thing, right? Transmute! Nope, okay, I was wrong.
I can't.
We could upgrade these. I guess it's the other game you can upgrade them in. Alright, there we go. We found the Roderick Cube. We will be continuing this tomorrow. If you appreciate this content, let me know. If you never want to see me play Diablo ever again, let me know. If you agree with me about what I said about the legacy of Mr. Gygax in today's vlog, let me know. If you don't agree with me, let me know. If you haven't subscribed yet, please help me subscribe. We are currently at 507 subs. If we can maintain that till, say, Tuesday night, then we might do a tour of the CES Games and Anime, assuming it's open. It wasn't open last Tuesday. I know I said we'd do a tour, but it wasn't open. So that's still on the board. Till next time, I'm the #1 guide to all tabletop role-playing game news, whether it's sports, the man known as the OGGM, Gary Gygax.